myths and misconceptions. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5 and 106.1 and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Hey, this is Chris from the Ticket Stub. You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and I'm Rick Schisler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor and also the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Well, I'm glad you've taken the time to join us. I think we've lined up a really good show for us today. And before we get started, kind of go through some of the preliminaries. First of all, we're broadcasting live today from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is located in downtown Conroe, Texas. And if those of you who are outside of Conroe listening, Conroe is one of the fastest growing cities in America, and you got to kind of live here to experience. It's growing, and it's growing fast. So it's a great place to do business. It's a great place to be around business. A lot of great partners, support, vendors, people are attracted to the area. So we're talking about business from Conroe, Texas today. Quick thought. Has everyone come back to the office? I ran into somebody recently, small business owner, has about 30 employees, and they were talking about how they've gradually brought people back to the office, if you will, or back into the business, the ones that worked remotely during COVID, and what a challenge that was, and we chatted about it. Then, when you believe it, I run into somebody who's got 5 employees. And they've been through a scenario that was worse than pulling teeth. It was unbelievable to hear what they've been through. Now, all of their people were office people. They don't produce a product or service on site. And they had 2 out of 5, that just really, really didn't want to come back to the office. And they even went with a hybrid plan, the business did. And it still didn't work for these 2 folks, and eventually they terminated their relationship with the business. They left their jobs, and I find that very challenging. There are a lot of stories out there like that. I think if you have people that haven't come back to the office or fallen in line, if you read out there on the press, you'll find articles about Amazon, big, huge companies. And they've gotten to a point where they're drawing a line, say you come in 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes not all 5 or 6, then you're not going to have a job. And I think that's interesting, but think about it. I'm a holdout. Put yourself in their shoes, right? It's a place to start when you're trying to solve any issue or problem. I get to stay. I dress casually. I don't have the expenses of the commute, the dressing, perhaps going out for lunch, and most importantly, in many cases, have more family time because they don't have a commute of 15, 20, an hour or more in some cases each way. So that's where they're coming from. 2 questions for you. Where do you draw the line? Well, I think the answer to that is a hybrid, if that's possible, where you still allow people a day, maybe 2 days, that they can work from home, maybe every week. I saw one company went every other week, so they had half the crew in at least every day. To me, from a business perspective, that makes a lot of sense. And how do you draw that line so that you lose as few people as possible? And that is a very, very tricky question. I'd love to hear from you about it. Please drop me an email. It's simple, Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you, particularly on this subject of what your experience has been, what your challenge has been, and may still be on getting everybody back to work. So drop your email, rick at irlonestar.com. Well, the weekly business hours, I said earlier, is being broadcast today from Conroe, Texas. Conroe is the county seat for Montgomery County. And this is where businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve their business, and to be a part of conversations that can make a real difference in your business. I want to let you know, if you are not a regular with our show, that we're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. Simply go to the Weekly Business Hour page. Then you can watch us as well as listen. A lot of folks prefer that. I am one of those people. I'd rather watch than just listen, unless I'm in the car, of course. And a reminder that the email's there. We want to hear from you. If you send an email during the show, I can even discuss it. In fact, later on in today's show, we're going to respond to a question that was posed in one of those emails in our mailbag segment. Well, let's get right to it. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of our show, and that's when we have people come in to talk to us. Today, we're blessed to have an expert with us, Mr. John Stacy, action coach. John's been on this
AdviCoach.
AdviCoach. I don't know why. Well, my fault. AdviCoach. I know there's a difference too.
There is absolutely a difference. Thank
Absolutely. You. I may let you explain that for people that are looking for coaching. That's John Stacy, if you didn't guess, correcting me, which I appreciate. John's been on the show a number of times and shared a lot of good information. He brings a lot of wisdom to the table. So without further ado, John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm just so happy to be back. It's been quite a while, so thank you.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it. I could, with COVID, you said the last time you were here was pre-COVID, which just feels like a millennial ago. I mean, unbelievable. But it's still out there. It's still with us. Well, John, what have you been doing since the last time you were on the show?
Well, really a lot of the same. Really focus on helping business owners focus on their growth. What do they need to do to survive? I think that you just brought up one of the major issues that are continuing to come up. Do employees stay at home and work, or do they work from the office? How do you kind of balance that? So that's a big challenge. And I've seen a lot of things as the economy changes that's impacting businesses in a lot of different ways. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today, but that really comes down to business owners focusing on their business every day. And so that's really what I do to help them, is to focus, execute their plans, and drive their success. Now, every business owner's definition of success is different, but that's really one of the things that makes us different, is we really focus on the owner. What do you need? What do you want for your biggest asset? And your company is your biggest asset.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And like you say, based on my experience of being in multiple businesses as an entrepreneur and working with people myself as a coach, not so much a mentor or an advisor to them, is kind of where I come from. Sharing my experience is that, one of the reasons we go into business for ourselves is so we can do it like we want to do it. So right out of the box, before we even open the door for the first day of business, we're going to do it our way. So we're all different, right? Because we all do things different. I always found that as a real challenge, to be honest with you, in working with people, is determining what the goals are, what their notion of success is. You really hit a nail on the head there. Well, John, I have to ask you this, and we're going to jump into some of the expertise that you have, which I think is a wonderful topic you're going to be offering us today. What's your sense of business right now in the small business, medium-sized businesses, particularly here in Montgomery County? What's going on?
So I think you need to kind of look at the U.S. in general first before you talk about locally. And I think that, when you look at the cumulative inflation rate over the last 3 years, you can see different numbers out there, but it's 18, 20, 21%, which is just unbelievable. You look at raises, increases in compensation for people, and again, I can find numbers from 0.5 to 5 or 6%, but the net of it is when you start looking at the cumulative inflation rate and the increases, we've got a 14, 15 point gap, which is unbelievable. And whether you're a business or an individual, how do you survive that? You walk into a grocery store today and look at what the cost of food is. You walk into Home Depot and Lowe's. You walk into a furniture store. You walk any place, and the costs are so much higher that I don't know how people are surviving today. So one of the things that you see happening today is credit cards. People haven't necessarily changed how they're living, a lot of people, but how they're affording it is to run up credit card debt. So what you see now is credit card debt, it's at its highest level ever. Well, you know what's coming because people run out of credit. And so on one side, you're going to see defaults. The credit cards have increased their rates from 18 to 22%, something along those lines. And again, I'm talking individuals, but it's individuals and businesses. So as you look at that, you kind of bring that into what's happening in Montgomery County or Conroe. We still have a thriving economy here. We're still dealing with all of those financial pressures. I think it's going to get worse. But with that, there's a number of housing divisions that you see going up, and there's 14,000 homes going up in this area of Montgomery County. There's another 9,000 in this, and I don't remember the names of the different subdivisions, but the housing that's going up is substantially cost substantially more. And you look at that, I'm baffled on how we can have the credit card debt issues going on and then all this housing going on. And it seems like we're trying to push for a bubble. Could be wrong, but lots of growth in Conroe, Montgomery County. Again, you mentioned it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country, which is fantastic. But we're dealing with some of those things too. So not only do you have increased cost, increased traffic, more road construction. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the county that are impacting all of us. And you see some of the things, and I see 105 and what they did to 105 and put the median in there. I know it was for safety, but the fact of the matter is everybody's complaining about it because somehow it impedes where they're going. Because that's the other thing I see is where people have no sense of humor anymore. I need it now. If someone does something, I yell at them. So it's there's just a lot of things that are going on, people-wise, company-wise, within really Conroe and the country at this point.
To double back on something you said, because I really think you're on point. You and I are definitely in agreement. I think we're headed for some kind of bubble. You can give it any kind of name you want. I know all the big newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, the business magazines, the folks on TV that deal with business issues. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but I think the interest rates, particularly credit cards, at 23 to 25%, even in some cases, and people are financing their buying habits. Like you say, they apparently haven't slowed down. They're still buying. But I'd be frank with you, when we go to the store, my wife buys groceries and I buy this, we go out to eat, we talk about it every single time. And then slowly but surely, we're not going out to eat as much. I can tell you that. It's amazing. And the same thing in other things, purchasing a new car, anything. So we are probably conservative compared to some people in our buying habits, but it will move its way up, and the big squeeze will be the credit. The same thing on housing. Like you say, they're building houses everywhere, and also in Montgomery County, I see a lot of apartments going up. And real estate was my background when I first started out, and I see definitely a problem here. I know it's already showing its face in our adjoining county, Harris County, Houston, Texas, and I think it's going to really, unless something dramatic happens in the next 6 months, and then on top of it, as they would say, the icing on the cake is this damn political election that's coming up a year from now, and all the confusion and it's just. Let's put it this way, a year or so from now, I wouldn't bet a whole lot on us starting to move backwards, whether that's a recession or a single blow up in a recession or one that just sort of trickles in. So I think that those of us in business need to watch our back, so to speak. And there's opportunities to make money in good times and bad, as my father used to remind me. But you got to be really smart. I think you got to be smarter in bad times than good times. So that would be my encouragement to business owners, managers who are listening to the program. Well, John, you're here today to share your expertise. You just did, and I deeply appreciate it. I think you and I are putting a word out a little bit different than others, and let's cross our fingers and hope it's not too painful. But you have a program, I guess, or a thought here you're going to share with us, which I'm intrigued when I read through your notes and whatnot, entitled Triage Your Business for the Future. So this may end up being right on point. So ladies and gentlemen, John and I are going to talk about this. He's going to present why you need to triage your business for the future.
So triage, a lot of people may not know what triage is or what has to happen. And so when I start thinking about that word, because that's my word of the day, triage, one of my favorite shows as I was growing up, there's a movie and a TV series called MASH. And so a lot of you that it's still out there. So you can still watch the old reruns, right? But it was about MASH. And it was a hospital unit in Korea. In the 50s. Remember, it's a surgical hospital. There's people called Hawkeye, Trapper John, Corporal Klinger, a lot of these folks. And so as I watched the movie, it was a comedy, but there's a lot of serious things in there. The reason I wanted to talk about MASH is what's the reason for MASH? What is a Army MASH unit do? And really, when it comes down to it, the purpose of the MASH was to what? Make a first determination. So as they were bringing in wounded soldiers, make a first determination on what to do. First thing then is stabilize. We get them in, we need to stabilize them. As we stabilize them, we treat them, we operate on them if we need to. And as we looked at what has to happen, then we were going to either evacuate them, depending on what state they were in, or put them back on the line. So when I start talking about triage and really evaluating the business, it's really the same thing. Find the first determination. Let's evaluate the company. Let's evaluate where you are. Let's stabilize you if we aren't stable. Treat. So then we start thinking about what do we need to do or what are our future plans. And then let's get back into service. Hopefully we don't have to evacuate, because that would be like exiting the business, I think. So I really wanted to mention MASH because it was one of my favorite shows, but it really helps us think about what triage is. And as we start thinking about triage, what do we need to do from a business perspective? And I'm going to say a lot of the stuff that we talk about, it's not just business, it's also personal, because we need to be doing the same things personally, right?
Well, let me make a comment on that, because when I read through this and was getting prepared, the triage example and the MASH unit, the military unit that they put at the front lines, and they still do today. One of the things that struck me, because I know from my reading, that these units have dramatically changed the survival rate, the recovery rate for our men and women who are wounded in battle.
Right.
I turned it over, I flipped that, and I said, well, what about my business? The triage can have a tremendous impact on my business, just like it did for our men and women who have been wounded in battle. And those numbers are unbelievable, what a difference it's made over the number of years they've been doing that. So,
and as technology gets better, as the treatment gets better, it really gets people or saves lots of lives. Now, what we're seeing, though, in the U.S. is while it saved lots of lives, when you start talking to veteran groups, now you have a situation where you have a lot of people that are coming back with, without limbs, PTSD and those types of things. So the negative, it's not negative. The side of it is we're keeping people alive longer.
Right, and that's a general thing for our population.
Right.
And just a side note, I don't think we're prepared as a society for all that entails, whether it be veterans or just the average person. I mean, when you extend the life, you got to be prepared and have a pathway for everybody to fall into to successfully use or live those extra years, if you will.
Right.
So business, I've got to survive, and you and I both know a lot of businesses during COVID, small businesses, even large businesses. Bankruptcies were always in the news, in the business news, and a lot of small business people, particularly people who were towards the end of their career, they just shut down because they didn't want to deal with the challenges, which in some cases were pretty extreme, shutdowns and things.
But Rick, on the flip side of that is that there are a lot of people that saw an opportunity with that and expanded with new service, new products that really helped them grow their business, became much more successful as a result of it. So when it comes down to it, we can look at things from a negative perspective and shut down or go out of business, or a lot of people found a way to be positive and say, okay, how can I take this negative thing that's going on and turn it into an opportunity to expand? And there's a lot of people, look at the businesses, large businesses out there today, DoorDash, and you start getting into all of these other people that provide services. You look at what's happened with grocery stores, they're providing delivery services. Who would have thought 5 years ago that there'd be significant delivery services that deliver from Kroger's and H-E-B and those types of things, and restaurants? All those are really new businesses that grew up, and a lot of it was pushed and pushed and have grown as a result of COVID.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and that's what the triage your business will do. You're prepared and hopefully a little bit flexible. That was one of the key things I found, that people said, "Oh, I don't care anymore. I'm not ready to start over." It's interesting, but you're 100% right. Always new opportunities to meet these challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our quarter of the hour break now. When we come back, we're going to jump in with both feet, both arms, our whole body. We're going to jump in and talk about how you can prepare your business for what's to come. Whatever it is, have your business ready to meet the down as well as the up. So stay with us and we'll be right back.
Don't miss Lone Star Community Radio on TV and YouTube. Our talk show and music shows are featured on Our City TV, Suddenlink Channel 12, and have their own YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with posted shows and comment on them below the video.
Is there someone you know who is hooked on vintage aircraft? Follow the Commemorative Air Force and its fleet of World War II planes, including the mighty B-17 Flying Fortress Texas Raiders, which is based in Conroe, Texas. Texas Raiders tours locally and all around the United States, offering the public a chance to put their hands on aviation history. What could be a more perfect gift than a flight on a historic B-17? Taking to the sky on the iconic bomber is an experience that will never be forgotten. For the touring schedule, reservations, or more information, go to b17texasraiders.org or call 855-FLY-A-B-17.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Vell Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit, began in 2014 with a mission to strengthen the future of veterans through leadership and entrepreneurship training. We've invested over 1,400 hours of training in our veterans while connecting them with community entrepreneurs and leaders. Our mission is to continue investing in our veterans who have given so much for our country. Please join us in our mission by visiting vellinstitute.org. That's VELinstitute.org.
Hey y'all, it's DJ Mike from Dance Time in Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Does volunteering at a nonprofit horse sanctuary sound wonderful? Or are you a veteran or a veteran spouse and think trying a peer group session through a local Horses and Heroes equine program might be worth trying? Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary, located in Grand Central Park by appointment only, is home to a growing number of rescued and donated horses. Visit our website at henryshomehorsesanctuary.org or check out our Facebook at Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary for more information.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schisler. I'm your host, and we're in the middle of, I think, a very valuable conversation with Mr. John Stacy, AdviCoach. And John, we were talking about triaging our business, preparing ourselves for what may or may not come, so we not only can survive, I'm adding this, but thrive. And we kind of touched on that before we went to break. Well, let's get down into the nitty-gritty of what this is all about. We talked a little bit about what's happening in business today, Conroe and nationally, and the question is, how prepared are we, right? So let's talk about that. What do you suggest to businesses to determine how prepared they are? Where do they need to start in this simple process?
Well, I mean, the simple process really is to focus on evaluating your company, but it's evaluating your company from top to bottom. So we'll talk about things, kind of go time, team, and money. If we kind of focus on those three things, which means we're going to be talking about staffing, we're going to be talking about values and culture, really start talking quite a bit about what a plan, what your plan is, and a lot of people don't have a plan. As a matter of fact, they come in every day, they get there at whatever time, 6 a.m. in the morning, and then they hit the first emergency. And they kind of work through that emergency, and then they go to the next emergency. They're so buried in the day-to-day of the company that they really don't take time to step back and understand where they are. Where I kind of come in and help is, okay, let's step back, let's go top to bottom and figure out where are we. Because if we know where we are and we have a vision on where we want to go, then it's pretty easy to put a plan together. So there's a lot of steps that we take to do those kind of things. So, we talk about a strategic plan, we talk about execution, and again, I mentioned values, and I'll kind of jump around here a little bit. But when I start talking to someone about a strategic plan, the first thing we do is we look at the SWOT analysis, and that's really strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and I throw in another one, trends. Okay, and so we really spend time focused on what, the strengths, how good are we, okay, weaknesses, where we have challenges and where there's some things that we could improve on, opportunities, and that's really looking at internal, because it may, I see a lot of people that have process challenges or opportunities. If we did this, we could improve our profitability by 2 points or something along those lines. Threats. And threats can be internal and threats can be external. And so as we look at things external to the business that are threats, we've talked earlier about the economy. We didn't really mention recession, the R word. Depending on who you listen to at this point, we're going to have a soft landing. I think both of us are a little bit challenged just because of the inflationary impact on everything at this point. And then obviously there's been a lot of news for several years through COVID on supply chain. So those are the primary threats that are external. Now, can we do anything about the economy? Nope, we can't. If there's a recession, as a small business here in Conroe, there's nothing we can do about it. Even a large business really can't do anything about it. You can take advantage of it, and probably the best example are companies like Amazon. What happened with supply chain issues? What happened when the economy? What happened when COVID hit with Amazon? They've blown up. I mean, they've changed the way people shop. So there's things that you can take advantage of, but you can't, as a company here in Conroe, can you change the economy or recession? No. You have to know about your company, and you need to be able to adapt to the situation. Competition, I've got a lot of people that don't worry too much about their competition. They focus on, what do I do? What makes me different? Why am I better than someone else? And so they don't spend a lot of time talking about the competition. They've got an idea what the competition does, and a lot of competition does something similar. And the thing is, if you do the same thing as your competition, that doesn't differentiate you. You basically become a commodity, and as a commodity, what do you sell on? You sell on price. You can be the lowest priced commodity, but you don't make any money. So when you look at it, competition, from my perspective, need to know what they're doing, but let's not focus on the competition. Let's focus on what we do, make sure that we do it better than anybody else.
It's interesting when I hear you go down through that list, so to speak. One of the things that I've always found interesting and challenging is when I talk to a business, particularly if they have a handful of employees. So they say, "Oh, I'm a small, really small business." The planning, what is that going to do for me, right? Because like you, in your example, come in at 6, I open up, it's all in my head. I carry the business in my head, basically. They may not even do monthly financials, right? It's just, how do you get through to those people to show them the importance? Because they need to be prepared just as much as the business that has thousands of employees. And yet, they are resistant or they don't really understand. I have actually talked to businesses that were doing $10 million a year in sales with almost no planning, but it had grown so fast. They had a good idea, they implemented it in a haphazard kind of way, but it worked, and they really weren't making much profit, but they had a lot of sales. What do you do with those folks?
Boy, that is a really tough question. It's being able to convince them or really talk to them about what challenges they're doing, because it's what they're doing on a daily basis. In some cases, I've seen businesses that almost as large as the one you just mentioned that really had no financials. He had a checkbook. He had a checking account. And I'm going, how do you even know how you're doing? And basically the response is, well, I'm doing good if I got money in my checking account. And I looked at the working process that he had. I looked at those things, and I'm going, but how do you even manage your business? How much could you drive? And it's trying to be able to show them that if you were able to make some changes in the way you're running your business, instead of making this % profit, you could double or triple your profit. And is that something that you'd be interested in?
It's funny. I always tell a story. Maybe you've heard it, but about my father back when I was very young. We had a vendor, and it was a family-owned business, and it became generational. It continued for 75 years. But back in the beginning, the original generation, we were buying from them, and my father became friends, and they asked him to take a look. Now, he was not a consultant. He was running a business. But he ran the administrative side of the business primarily. Anyway, long and short of it, he goes to their office. They just don't, They just want some help about how to organize. They're not working out of a checkbook, John. They're working out of a cigar box, my dad said. And the idea was at the end of the week, the end of the month, and the end of the year, if there was money in the cigar box, because back then there was a lot more cash floating around than there is today, then they'd made a profit and they were doing fine. And it literally, and they had a bookkeeper on premises who had lots of experience. It was an older gentleman, my dad said, smoked a cigar, stub cigar, but he got a big kick out of that, that it was all about the cigar box, and which he said was pretty worn. So it had been keeping that business, it had been the measurement of success, if you will, for a number of years.
The cigar box, that is fantastic.
But that's what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. So really it's helping people understand, and I'll talk just financial health, and evaluating the health. And since we're talking MASH, we're talking about medical, let's talk about health. And it's the health of the business. So we can talk about the health of the organization. So then it's about how do you evaluate your income statement on a monthly basis, or are you? Do you even have one? What does your balance sheet look like? So you spend time really understanding what's going on that. We talked about profitability analysis, margins and those types of things. So when you start really getting in and understanding what your revenue is and your margins, then it's really easy to start showing that, okay, if I looked at because there's data out there, right? If I looked, most companies run a 65% margin, and you're running a 40% margin. Do you think we have some opportunity here? So you can start showing them data that if we made some subtle changes, we might be able to look at those things. Now, I'm going to just kind of throw some things in here. I've aged, and I realize that I'm not as good on some things as I used to be, or maybe never was. But so what I've got is some vendors that kind of help. Because when I start looking at AP and looking at what people are spending, I know a lot of companies out there that can help you improve things that can do a much better job than I can. So, some examples, a lot of, depending on the company, a lot of companies spend way too much on utilities. There's a lot of people that spend too much on transportation. There's some experts out there that actually will not charge you to do the analysis. They're going to charge you if they save you money. Okay,
Right.
And then there's process consulting, because there's a lot of large companies out there, or 50, 100 employee companies that they'd save a lot of money if they really looked at what their process was and was involved with process consulting. There's capital and there's lending programs. So there's a lot of things that are out there that can help if you know that you need the help. And we're talking about preparing, we're talking about triage. So these are things that we need to be doing now, because if things do go south, we're prepared and we can weather the storm, and that's what's really important.
Yeah, and I think that's what really important is people recognize, because I have found, and what I personally really enjoy is mentoring or advising, as I call it. Coach is another word. Is that when you get a chance to show somebody the 25-point opportunity and this and that, and then work with them through the change, and then over a long period of time monitor and train them, because you're talking about, in the case of the people that we're talking about today, you're talking about changing attitudes, you're talking about changing culture, all these things, and I don't want to overwhelm the listener, but it's new habit, really, to pay attention and want to pay attention to these other ideas, these other goals, targets, numbers, things that, and it's not overwhelming. But you can sure put a lot more money on the bottom line. That's my expression. Take it right to the bottom, and it's amazing. But like you say, you got to get their attention. Sometimes it takes a two before.
And change is tough. Change is tough for us individually. Change is tough for owners of businesses. Change is tough for employees. But you've really got to be able to show them and convince them. It's show them, and you know what? If you can show them the data, most people are going, "Oh, I didn't realize that. Maybe there is an opportunity." So you've got to be able to show them something that they realize that they can make a change. And so I guess another way to put it is, until the pain gets bad enough to want to change, they're not going to want to change. But when that pain to them is so bad, they realize something needs to change, then you can help them make the change.
Yes, and another way I've been successful, a little harder, I think, to convey, a little more challenging, is the 25 points. If I can say we're going to put another 2, 3, 5% on the bottom line for you, and here's just a quick calculation, I should light up, right? But sometimes it's difficult because it's unbelievably. And when I monitor businesses, I monitor that profit. If we're only going to talk about one number, we're going to talk about profit. Then we'll talk about revenue. We'll talk about some other things. And I have a business I work with recently. I say recently, I've worked with them for a long time, and they're up to 30-some% profit, a service business. Yeah.
That is unbelievable,
now,
right?
They don't grow their sales like I would like to see them do it, but there's some method to their madness because they're getting out of the business personally what they want, right? And they're putting 30% on the bottom line, and it's a six-figure number. So it's not, that's after everything's paid, good honest profit, taxable profit. So it's interesting when you work that it can work, but it's a little more challenging than the pain. And what I'm concerned about, back to what we started talking about, is we've got some kind of financial something along with other things coming our way in the next year or two. There's just too many balls in the air that something's going to happen. Maybe it won't be as bad as you might think, but maybe it'll be better like most of the procrastinators are saying now. But the idea that a business is sitting there, and there's literally thousands of them, that not only can't grow or thrive or even survive, I guess I kind of worry about the ones that for no reason other than they didn't sit down like you have suggested and work through the business and work on the business and plan, that they could lose their business for no other reason.
Well, so as you talk about that, a lot of business owners, and I started talking about this earlier, really are so focused on the day-to-day emergencies and running the day-to-day business. If you don't take the time to step back and think about your business, there's no way you're going to thrive, or there's a very small chance you're going to thrive. Right. So it's either survive or thrive. And so as a business owner, what do you do? And you mentioned, how do you make a change? And I kind of thought about a vice president that I reported to at one of the companies, big process guy from Motorola, and his name was Kurt. And I remember it, but he had this saying, you measure what you value. You measure what you value, and you start thinking about that. What's important to the owner is what they're going to measure and think about. So if we can't convince them that profit's important, it's not something that they're wanting to measure. So you're really not going to be able to convince them that it's all that important.
Right, and that's so people understand. First of all, what we're talking about, planning, whatnot, it's not that hard to do it, especially if you've got someone like John helping you go through the steps. And two, it's not just meant for large businesses. Every business, you could even be a solo practitioner, and I guarantee you there's some things that if you open your mind to it and accept the help, will help you be more successful. So don't discount this. We're talking a lot, and I hear people kind of, where am I, and they sort of shifting in the seat, and it's a process that will make your business better fit what you feel success looks like, and that's what's important to me. Well, John, we've run out of time today. It's always interesting. You and I could probably talk for hours, and that's the way it's been in the past. I always find it enlightening. If people want to follow up and talk to you, communicate with you, what's the best way to do it?
Probably email me at jstacy@AdviCoach. That's AdviCoach.com.
Well, John, again, thank you so much for coming in. And ladies and gentlemen, stick with us through the bottom of the hour break. We're going to come back, and what time we have available, I'm going to talk to you about woke capitalism. This is kind of a macro topic, but it's a very interesting concept. And we read about it, we hear about it in the news, but here we're going to talk about how it works for some businesses and why does it work. So I think that's interesting, and you will find some things applicable to your business as well. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question, comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station on irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
God's Garage is a 501c3 that repairs and gives away cars for free to single moms, widows, and wives of deployed military. You can help God's Garage by donating a vehicle, volunteering your time, or by monetary donation. God's Garage is located at 2106 East Davis, Conroe. If you'd like to learn more about God's Garage, visit our website at godsgarage.org. Or you can contact us and we would be glad to come and make a presentation to your group.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids are removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Hey y'all, it's DJ Mike from Dan Simon, Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You've been listening to the Weekly Business Hour. Rick Schisler, your host. I hope you enjoyed the conversation that we just concluded with John Stacy, AdviCoach. And please, if you want to re-listen, the show will be published on Wednesday of this week. It'll be available out there as an audio, video podcast for you. So you can find it at the Weekly Business Hour pages on Facebook, YouTube, all the social media, or you can come right here to the station's website, irlonestar.com. Click the shows tab, the daytime shows, and on the Weekly Business Hour, and it'll be there as well. So please encourage you, re-listen, and better yet, if you have a chance, share it with someone, another business person. It'd be fantastic. We're always looking to increase the size of our membership, and it would be wonderful to have another business that you're familiar with to be part of what we're doing. Well, I've just got a few minutes left, but I came across an article recently which led me to do some more reading. This article was published in the Wall Street Journal, and it was Why Woke Capitalism Works for Ben & Jerry's. It's really kind of interesting, and it's really simple. If you're familiar with Ben & Jerry's ice cream, a lot of people don't like their politics, and then we're going back to Ben & Jerry, but they've sold the company to a very, very large international corporation. But when they sold it, they got an agreement that the subsidiary now, if you will be allowed to follow in the steps of Ben & Jerry and continue to take positions, social positions, that may be against the mainstream. So it's really interesting. Recently, we've heard about Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light, if you can still remember that brand. Disney constantly getting into it, particularly in Florida, and even BlackRock investment firm, which is the largest investment firm in the world, have put their foot into, well, you know what I'm saying. So let's talk about why Ben & Jerry's, and this applies to your business as well, can get away with taking positions, social positions, political positions against the grain. I mean, because you know why? It's simple. They're true to what they represent. Their mission statement, or their mission, if you don't write it down, you write it down, you can call it a statement. If you just have it in your mind and you have a culture in your business, this is what our purpose is, then it's still your mission. Their mission statement clearly says who they are and who they're going to be, okay? And unwritten is who they want to reach. But most importantly, what are we going to do with the money we make, right? It is clearly stated either directly or indirectly. And guess what? They do what they say they're going to do. Now, flip that over to what happened earlier this year with Anheuser-Busch and Busch Light. Most everybody has heard at least something or read something about what happened to them. And they came at it with an advertisement that was offensive to certain people. Well, lo and behold, it was offensive to their main market. Now, they're marketing Bud Light as a blue-collar, working man's, every person's beer. And then all of a sudden they come out and say, no, we're not. We're going to get a small slice of society, and we're going to focus on that. Well, what happened should not be a surprise, particularly to Anheuser-Busch. It blew up in their face. Why? Simple. They didn't do or perform or present to the public, to their customers, their clientele. They didn't do what they said they were. They say they're a working man's brew, if you will, and then they turn around and have a marketing message that is nowhere near that. So they got caught effectively for telling a lie. They lied to their consumers. That's the way it was taken by their main consumer base. So what did they do? They didn't follow their mission statement. Go read Anheuser-Busch's mission statement. I'm not going to bore you with reading it online, but that's exactly what happened. That's what happens with Disney. It seems like on a regular basis. They get criticism for their movies, their theme parks. They're all about family. They say that in their mission statement. We are a family organization, yet they continue to support what I call splinter or social causes and take up and push it. They push it. They don't just support it, they push it. And what is that saying to their main consumer base? You've been lying to us. You're not about the family. You don't have family values, whatever those may be. I mean, they're lying. They've lost track of their mission statement. The marketing department is trying to present a whole new Disney, and it isn't going to work with your main consumer base in this case. And it has cost them millions and millions of dollars in lost revenue. So it's really interesting. And BlackRock Capital is another one, more of a business type thing. The same thing happened to them in their investments. It's real interesting. Everybody got hyped up on the ESG, environmental policies. So they told people, well, we're going to invest your money in ESG type projects and so on and so forth. But if you look at their mission statement and who they've been, they are there to make money for their investors. And all of a sudden, we find out, well, ESG doesn't necessarily make the most money. Well, it makes sense. You're investing in a social cause, not just to make money. Like Ben & Jerry. Ben & Jerry tells the truth. BlackRock lied. I don't think it was intentional. I think they allowed corporate management, allowed things to get out of hand. And again, they're the biggest asset manager in the world. They should know better, right? Doesn't mean they don't get to sell ESG, but they've got to say, look, we're here to make the best return for our clients. But in this case, we're going to make an exception. And for those who want to support certain social causes, the environment, et cetera, then we're going to have these funds available for you to make your investment. What are we talking about? To me, it's on the top 5 rules when you start a business, run a business successfully, is you tell people who you are, you tell them again, and you tell them again, and you don't deviate. If you want to change who you are, be real public about it, be real upfront. Can't build a culture internally, hire the kind of people that support that. Your execution will not be top notch. No way about it. You create confusion, not only to your customers, but internally in your business. So take Ben & Jerry as an example of what you want to do when you represent yourself in your business to the world, and most importantly, internally to the people that work with you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you have found value in today's program. And my encouragement to you is stay engaged this week and keep your focus, as always, on what counts in your business. Thank you.